Hey everyone, welcome to TechStrong TV for today, Thursday, September 16th. I'm Alan Schimmel, and we've got a great show for you. It's been a busy week. It's always a busy week here, but it's been a busy week in the public market, stock markets for DevOps companies. We saw JFrog had a very successful IPO yesterday, and of course Snowflake, a data warehousing company, also had an amazing IPO. And then today, Sumo Logic, another DevOps-related company, goes out with their IPO. At the end of today's show at 11:30 Eastern Time, I will be live online interviewing CTO, co-founder of Sumo Logic, about their IPO and about what's happening. You'll be able to catch it on our Digital Anarchist Network, as we call it, which is the same places where you're watching this on TechStrong TV, Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, Twitter, YouTube, all of our media ops sites, as well as Amazon, Apple, Roku, and our mobile app on DevOps.com. In addition to that, though, I've got a great lineup of guests for today. I have Idit Levine, the founder, CEO of Solo.io. She's a powerhouse. And I every time I speak to her, I'm more and more impressed with what she's building with Solo and how she looks at solving one little problem at a time. Great stuff there. I'm then joined by my friend Anand Oswal, who's the general manager of the general manager of the practice over at Palo Alto Networks for Firewall as a Service. And then we are joined by Ronnie Franchi of Envo, E-N-V-O. I'll then have the news. Then we'll turn things over to Charlene O'Hanlon, who has a good interview with David Moose-Woolpack of Rendor today. And then Analyst Corner with Mitch Ashley. And Mitch's guest today is Dr. Sal Staffolo, founder, CTO of Allure Security. I'll be back to wrap things up, and then we'll head right on over to the Sumo Logic interview. So it's going to be a big day today, big show, another big show. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and I'll be right back. Our first guest today is Idit Levine, founder, CEO of Solo.io. They just announced their WebAssembly CIO OCI image specification. And Idit is just building Solo into a powerhouse. I love speaking to her and hearing all that they're doing. Here now's my interview with Idit Levine of Solo.io.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us on another session here for TechStrong TV. My guest is Idit Levine. Idit is the CEO founder of Solo.io. And I must say, first of all, Idit, welcome to TechStrong TV. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much. And again, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Usually, Idit, I see you at KubeCon or a DevOps event or something, in person. And I guess the last time I saw you, it may be KubeCon in San Diego, like last November, something like that. Of course, no, we don't go anywhere anymore, so I don't get a chance to see all my friends. But this is almost as good. Idit, our audience is pretty cloud native, savvy, Kubernetes and DevOps and cyber, but maybe some are not familiar with Solo.io and what you guys do. So why don't you give the little company background to our audience, talk maybe a little bit about your background.
For sure. So I started Solo 3 years ago in pretty trivial problem solving, which is everything right now is going to become distributed, right? Everything is microservices right now, and therefore the network will become basically the queen, in my opinion, of the infrastructure. So what we wanted to focus is on this, is that how simple problem that before you didn't need to take care of, like how to, how the component, the services inside your application are communicated, because everything was one big binary. Now I wanted to understand how you're doing it, but everything is distributed. When we are focusing specifically on the communication, on the network, on the pipe, basically. So, how to microservices are communicating between each other. How do you make sure that they're doing it in a secure way? How do you make sure that you can see what's going on in all this, every request that's flowing to your application? So that's kind of like the focus that we wanted to solve. And we did it in 3 ways. We understood that, when we look around, we saw service mesh and we felt that will be the technology that probably will solve those problems. But we also thought that it will take a little bit while until people will adopt it and run it in production. So it was very important to us to come with kind of like a plan how to take the customer with us. And the way we did this is we started with what people we knew already know about, which is API gateway. But API gateway is a very, it's nothing new about API gateway. And that's exactly was the problem, because the technology itself was, nothing cloud native about. So what we did, we started by actually taking Envoy, which we believe will be the building block for service mesh, and build an API gateway on top of it. So that's the first thing that we did. And basically that way, the API gateway, it's all cloud native, declarative, everything that you can imagine. And that's what Glue is doing. Once people actually adopt and abstracting the network on the edge, then we move to service mesh. And what I personally believe that there are going to be a lot of service meshes. That's what we did. We basically came with a solution called Service Mesh Hub that basically will abstract all those services and treat them as implementation details, and allow you also to group them. If you're going, for instance, to AWS and you have STO on-prem, it's grouping them to what's called virtual mesh and basically working together. So that's the second pair. So once customer adopt the edge, abstract the edge, now they can abstract the rest of the northeast, east-west traffic. And the last one is that, okay, now you abstract everything, how do you actually extend it? How do you leveraging this abstraction? And that's why we came with a product called WebAssembly Hub, which generally I believe is WebAssembly Hub will be the future of cloud native for extending everything specific, and sure we know that Envoy is one of those things. So that's the 3 kind of like things that we focus on.
Beautiful. Excellent. Now, recently you mentioned the WebAssembly Hub. There was some news recently from the company. Why don't you share? Actually, before we get to that, Edith, let's talk a little bit about you. So how did you come to be the founder? It was obviously you're in the industry, you saw these as problems, but what's your background?
Yeah, so I'm relative, my background is computer science and bioinformatics, actually. So I have a degree in biology and in computer science, but I was working for the last 10 years ago, I fell in love with the cloud. Now, back then we didn't call it cloud, we call it virtualization, but I work in a little startup here in the Boston area that got acquired by VMware. And if you know what vRealize is, it's something that we started in a small group. So that was pretty rewarding. I started with this, then after the company got acquired, I moved to another startup company called CloudSwitch, who got acquired as well by Verizon. And then we were in charge of actually building the next generation public cloud of Verizon. So that's teach me a lot about scaling, right? Sure. Then I moved to EMC, and in EMC, I was part of the CTO office and also reported directly to the CTO of all EMC, and now Dell, John Ross. And I basically was also the CTO of the cloud management division. So we were doing a lot of innovation related to Cloud Foundry, Mesos, Kubernetes, all the orchestration work I was just about, kind of like in between that as well. And as much as I like EMC, and I really had a lot of time there, good time there, I thought that as a big company, it's a little bit harder for us to go faster. So that was the reason of kind of like starting solo. I believe that I had good idea, and I think that I knew what I'm doing, and I felt that it's a little bit harder to influence a big company to move to that direction. It will be way faster if I will be able to lead this team with a small team. So that's exactly what we did. I started solo, and solo today is, doing really, really well. We're running infrastructure for customer that, you can just imagine every time that you're using a credit card from one of the biggest companies in the world, you're actually running from our infrastructure, our technology. Every time that you're doing, you're using your cell phone with one of the other team, big companies, you're using we have Vonage and ADP and Carfax, extremely big customers. And we actually overwhelmed for an amount of the customer that coming to us. It's all inbound, so it's pretty exciting to help.
Good for you. You know what? You deserve it though too. You put in a lot of time. You were in the right places. You learned a lot, and you saw the opportunity there. And you're right. It is very hard. And there's nothing against EDS or Dell or IBM or any of these big companies, but the inertia to get something done or to move quickly there, sometimes it could be frustrating. And so I think you did the right thing, and good for you. So let's now, recently the Solo came out with some news as we were talking, we got sidetracked. But share with us if you can the new news.
Okay, so let me explain you a little bit the background that you guys will understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and so on. So as I said, once we abstract all the network and everything, all the communication is basically going through Envoy, we start working with our customer. And when we work with our customer, we discover that there is no such a thing, infrastructure that look the same. They never just buying glue or just buying service mesh app. They always ask for some customization or some enhancement. Now, in order to enhance, right, when you're looking at service mesh or API gateway, usually that means that you can either enhance what's called the control plane, that feeding the information to Envoy, or you want to actually enhance the Envoy itself, which is the data plane. So the control plane is pretty simple. You can write in operators, and we did some initiative there. But when you're talking about the actually data plane, in order to do this, it's very complex. What you need to do, you need to write a C++ async filter and rebuild Envoy. Now, I'm telling you that's not fun. That's a very complex problem. So when we looked at this, and it's not only us, all of us, like Google and others, the community, we figure out that there is something that should be done there, because otherwise it's really slow innovation. Now, we did it for our customer, right? If our customer come and said, I want a WAF filter, we sit down, we have the right people, we wrote the WAF filter based on mod security, and that's part of Glue. But again, it's a very slow process, and we thought that a lot of them, the customer can own by themselves. So what we did, we basically look at the technology around and came with this decision that WebAssembly could be this solution to be able to enhance it. So now, what is a WebAssembly? So WebAssembly is kind of like came from the word actually of the browsers. The idea was, how can you actually extend the browser, make it go very, very fast? But again, because it's the browser, there is some use cases that you need to cover. For instance, it has to be very quick. It has to be very safe, because if you will write code there that could be malicious, it will take the browser down. You definitely don't want to do that. And then the last one, you also need to make sure that it will run everywhere. And ideally, you also want to be able to write this extension in any language. So that's exactly what WebAssembly is all about. It's basically, it's sandbox, so it's making sure that it's secure. It's not assembly code, so it's actually, funny enough, it's not web and it's not assembly anymore. It's instruction code, which means that it's way more low level, which make it run relatively fast, almost natively. You can run it everywhere, because browser running everywhere, so you need to be able to run it on ARM and in other devices. And it's also, you can write the language in any language the extension in any language you want, and compile it to this model, right? So it's called WASM model. So that's great. When we look at this, this is great. This is what we need for Envoy, because if you think about it, we want something safe for Envoy. We don't want it to fall. We definitely want to make sure that you can, again, we would love to have it in any language. We want to make sure that it's secure because, you know, it's very, very critical. Envoy is actually running all your network. It's better be secure. So, you know, and WASM in general, WebAssembly, they created an interface called WASI that will give you ability not to run it only on the web. So what the Google guys did, and we help, is basically, or all the Envoy community help, is basically take this basically WASM and bring it to Envoy. Have the ability to write filter in Envoy that will be when type WASM. So that's what we did. Okay, so now that's all great, but now the user experience is horrible, right? Because if you think about it, how do you do something like that? So it's kind of like what happened with Linux container before. Linux container was there way before Docker was exist, but no one was using it. And why is that? Because it was complex. So when we look at it as solo, we said, that will be a problem. People will not adopt it. So we decided to create a tool that is basically give the user the experience that they're getting with Docker. So basically do to WASM Envoy what Docker did to Linux container. And we came with this, it's called WebAssembly Hub. And it's pretty trivial. You can, you know, you're doing WASMI, it's called the command line, WASMI init, it's creating you everything you need on your machine. And then you can seed it to the directory. It's already creating you all the project. So now you can put only the logic that you want. Then you can do WASMI build, WASMI push, WASMI pull, and WASMI deploy. So pretty trivial, but extremely, extremely important. So that's something that we did actually just right after San Diego. And Google liked it a lot. So they reached out to us and we did another announcement together, and Google decided that that will be the way, not Google, Istio community decided that that will be the way to extend Istio. So it's extending Glue, it's extending Istio, and hopefully in the future, other platform. So that's kind of like in the nutshell what is WebAssembly Hub. The recent announcement that we did is, you know, we learn a lot and we have customers running it in production. So we are basically, you know, have a lot of work and we learn a lot from actually do this experience. And we saw what happening in the market with, you know, before that container war, and then after it, container orchestration war. And then we saw, you know, a service mesh war right now. And we wanted to make sure that this market, I don't think it's healthy to the market. So we didn't want that to happen also for WASM. And what we thought of doing is basically try to kind of like formalize right now, what should be the spec, right? For actually storing and deploying a WASM filters, or WASM in general, WASM model. So what we did, we basically took the OCI image spec, which is basically just defining the layers. And we come with a more specific specification for WASM. We said, okay, if you're running WASM and you want to store it in a registry, like you're doing with Docker, what you will want to do is you need to have two layers. And here is what the spec for this layer, which will be the configuration, and for the other layer, it will be, for instance, the binary itself. And then in the configuration, here is the field that probably you should want. And we basically recently, we just announced it that this is what we believe from our learning that should be the spec. And we wanted to basically get a feedback from the community. And so far it's looking really good. Everybody, you know, Google really like it, and Microsoft really like it. And we talking today on the OCI as OCI talks in you know, on the TOC there. So, you know, we're basically getting a lot of very good feedback about this, and we're really happy about it. We're hoping that that will help not to distract this, that there will be an alignment and not misalignment in the market, if it makes sense.
Sure. So, you know, my experience has been is when you see a lot of solutions to solve the same problem in a market, it's because none of them do a very good job of it, right? None of them are perfect. All have strengths, weaknesses, etc. When you have a really good solution, there's, you know, it kind of, the market takes care of itself. You don't have that, I should do this kind of mesh or that kind of mesh, you know, whatever. It doesn't have to be mesh. So I think the fact that, you know, what we're seeing is alignment and consensus is because this is a good way of doing it. But it's also because, you know, in an open source world today, look, anybody could go out, they could fork, they could go start a new open source project, whatever. But again, if the problem's being solved well with this solution, and there's not kind of hair on it, that messes it up, why bother, right?
And
Use
unfortunately,
what's
people
out there.
are.
Yeah,
But
well,
this
this is why we can't all have nice things, but it is what it is. But it sounds like a nut. You know what's funny? Every time you say, oh, we solve a little problem here, we solve a little problem there, I learned that in technology, especially, very rarely do you see revolution. You see evolution. And evolution is made up of a little step here and a little step there and solve this little problem. And then when what is the saying? The days are short, but the months or years are long, something like that. When you look back over time and you see this little problem and that little problem and and they all start being solved, you start seeing what looks like revolutionary change, but it's very evolutionary. And so, that's kind of what we see here with Solo. Anyway, look, congratulations. It sounds like you're solving another little problem well that'll make people's lives easier in this space, and that's always a good thing. Come back and join us soon, right? Because I don't know when I'll see you in person again. So until then, come keep us posted on what's doing with Solo, okay?
Yeah, definitely stay tuned. There's way more coming up.
Really? All right. Now we're going to hold you to it.
Yep.
All right. Idit Levine, solving the world's little problems one at a time, but doing it well. Thanks for joining us. Continued success with Solo. This is Alan Schimmel for TechStrong TV. We'll be right back. Our next guest is Anand Oswal, Senior Vice President, General Manager, Security Leader at Palo Alto Networks. Anand joins us again with some exciting news from Palo Alto. He'll tell us all about it in his interview.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on another segment here for TechStrong TV. My guest this segment is someone who we've had on the show. I thought it was a few weeks ago, but he tells me it was 2 or 3 months ago. But such is life in COVID times. It's Anand Oswal. Anand is SVP General Manager for Firewall as a Platform at Palo Alto Networks. Anand, did I mess that up?
No, Alan, perfect.
Perfect. So 2-3 months, huh?
Yeah, it's been a while. How are you doing, Alan?
I'm doing well. I mean, well, as well as can be expected. I don't think I'm sick. I'm doing this every day, learning, enjoying, spreading the word. How about yourself?
I'm doing wonderful. Staying home and staying safe. Yeah.
That's what we do until it changes. So Anand, I don't think Palo Alto is a company that's a stranger to our audience, whether they be on the DevOps side of things or security, cloud native. Palo Alto has been a player in all of these communities. But I wanted to talk to you today about some new announcement that you guys had made. Actually, I think it was yesterday. And why don't you share with us what the announcement was and what are we doing?
Yeah, super excited to be here, Alan. First, we're going to talk about the industry's first next generation SD-WAN solutions. And
Great.
why is that important? It's important because we want to deliver a better user experience to our customers deploying next generation WAN solutions, making it simpler to deploy, simpler to manage, and simpler to harness the information from what's happening on the network. Super critical. If you look at the evolution of WAN solutions, and you know this, you've been in this market for a long time, Alan. We had the legacy WAN solutions, and about maybe 4 years ago or so, we had first generation SD-WAN solutions. And if you think about the first generation of SD-WAN solutions, they were really not designed for cloud connected organizations. For really this whole notion of anywhere work. It didn't have the operational efficiencies. What it really focused on was that how do you simplify VPN connectivity over broadband? How do you ensure that you're paying high cost on MPLS? You can now reduce your cost and have a cost arbitrage by using broadband as well. So they were really not defined for the cloud delivered model, the fully automated model that we talk about today. So what we're talking about really right now is that next generation of SD-WAN. How do we evolve that from just automating VPN over broadband, not really designed for cloud connected organizations, and how do we drive that path forward towards a next generation of an SD-WAN solution?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anand, let me just, I'm going to, if you don't mind, we're going to take a step back, though, just for a second, because some of our DevOps audience, maybe not our security audience, they heard of SD-WAN, they understand SD-WAN, but before we could start talking about next-gen SD-WAN versus the original SD-WAN, software-defined, I want to make sure we level set.
Got it.
Right? What do we mean? So, we, as you said, yes, LANs have been around a long time, and then we went from the LAN to the WAN, and now SD-WAN, software-defined wide area network. But beyond the jargon, what are we really talking about? Okay. We're talking about the ability that no matter where you are, whether it be at home or on the beach or on the space station, right? Going out via the internet and connecting to an application or a resource or data anywhere else on the internet. It could be in a data center at an office. It could be in a public cloud, a private cloud. It could be someone else's computer, anywhere, right? And the ability to do that, we used to call it point-to-point connection, if you will, right? Is what we mean by it. But of course, it's not point-to-point anymore, right? And one other thing I wanted to mention, and the way it sort of evolved pre-COVID was that we backhauled traffic. That was the word I was looking for, backhauled, right? Where if you were remote from your office, from your LAN on a WAN, you logged in, usually via VPN or something like that, back to your LAN, and then once you are on your LAN, you went out, via the drawbridge over the moat out of your castle, back out to the internet, to the cloud or whatever. But things were controlled here at the castle. Of course, that's all out. Go ahead.
So let me rewind the clock back. If you roll the clock back, which we all wish we could roll back to pre-COVID times, right? If you roll the clock back even like maybe 20, 25 years ago, right? The networks were simple, Alan. Yeah. That all the networks did was a bunch of computers or machines that we connected to a server. Okay. The way we talked about security was that nobody should get access to the server room. Is it locked? Right. Mm-hmm. And then we started having, maybe a storage, maybe over a WAN link, etc. And then maybe in the late 90s or so, we said, okay, this whole notion of broadband, how am I able to check my email from home? And then I had notions of VPN that came in, that basically the job of IT at that time was that how do I ensure that the right user accesses the company resources and has the access to right applications? And then we said, okay, bring your own devices and mobile devices, and the iPhone revolution, et cetera, came in. And we started having then the next motion of IoT devices in the enterprise, applications in the cloud, and things got complex or complicated. So if you think about the notion is that as a user, you're in the home, you're on the beach like you talked about, you're in the headquarters, you're in the branches, retail stores, whatever, right? Your expectation as users is that you want access to the same applications and you want the same user experience no matter what, right? That's great. That's what we expect as users. However, if you think from an IT perspective, they want to ensure that you have the same security policies for what you access no matter what. So you want that best-in-class application experience, but you also want it to be secure. Now, the applications today are no longer in the data center alone. They're still in the data center, some of them. They're in the cloud, not in one cloud, in multiple clouds and SaaS applications, etc. So your remote branches now don't need to go all the way backhaul, what you said, to a data center, apply the security and then access the applications. They can directly access the internet from the branch. And that's really the advent of what started with software-defined WAN, SD-WAN solutions. And then the first generation of SD-WAN solutions tried to automate simplifying VPN over broadband connectivity. However, as you start thinking in terms of the next generation of SD-WAN, I'd like to talk about 3 key attributes that are very, very important. First, layer 7 and application defined, providing that application layer visibility, create application defined policies, and most important, deliver the SLAs that we need for the applications, ensuring that we improve the end user experience. So no longer just layer 3 and layer 4 packet based, but really define everything application based, layer 7 based. The second attribute I'll talk about is autonomous, or what I call AI ops driven. Remove the automated operation, the problem avoidance, using the power of machine learning and data science. How do we convert that bits and bytes of data on the network into information? The information into insights, the insights that lead to outcomes for our customers, and then have that feedback loop through machine learning to improvise, to put automated remediation, etc. That's really what we want to do. In our cases, we've had customers who reduce now 99% of their WAN and application access trouble tickets. Because guess what? Wow. You always have a plethora of alarms coming in, then you sort the alarms, you group it, you aggregate it, you pinpoint. We're able to now use the power of automation to tell you exactly what's going on. The third attribute and the last attribute of next generation SD-WAN is really around cloud delivered. You want to have all brand services, including networking, best-in-class security, delivered from the cloud as a service. Really simplifying that WAN management, enabling branches to be rolled out in minutes instead of months. We had one of large customers with multiple stores, shut down one evening with first generation SD-WAN, woke up the next morning. Guess what? New next generation SD-WAN up and running in minutes. That's really the power of what we call as the next generation of a software-defined WAN solution.
Excellent. Good stuff, really good stuff here. So Anand, I've been waiting for things like this to start coming out, and I'll tell you why. When I look at how the world responded to COVID, there was the initial stage where, look, we just got to keep things up and running while people are working from home. So that means we're going to continue to use what we were using before, and we'll Band-Aid it. Right, Band-Aid solutions, short term, because we just got to keep things running. But at some point, we had to start saying, okay, this is the new normal. This is the new way. People are going to be remote. We're not going to be in an office, maybe, right? We're going to be remote, and we should look at just better ways of doing. If this is going to be the new architecture, let's look at better tools. There's better ways of doing it rather than using something that was designed for a different reality, for a different normal. These, like what you're discussing here now, this new next-gen SD-WAN, if you will, is a solution designed for today's normal, right? Where we're not going to Band-Aid what we were using 8 or 9 months ago. We're going, this is the way it's going to be. This is the right way to do it going forward then. My question to you,
majority of the issues that even people have are usually happening because of manual configuration, not because someone has, not every time because someone has some ill intent. It's a mistake. It's manual configuration. They lead to human error. And we want to have machine learning based capabilities to simplify the network operations. The system automatically identifies common root causes. When there are multiple events, there are multiple alarms, dramatically reduces the time to resolution, increases the availability of all the applications. When possible, automatically provide resolution of issues, freeing up the tasks of the people to other higher value activities. Capacity planning. I think we talked about in the past ones, like how do I understand what's running on my WAN, which applications, which users, what capacity, how much capacity I have left, how can we be predictive about when I need to upgrade things. All that can be automated. All those insights can be given to customers to help simplify the way they run, they manage the network.
Excellent. Here's my, in your case, maybe a $64 million question. How do we get companies to migrate to this when they're on the old stuff, right? When do they make that decision that says, hey, we got to do something that's better for us long term here? We've got to recognize this. Now's the time to make the switch.
Yeah, I think, look, and we give examples in our press releases with a big customer that is talking how they moved from the first generation legacy SD-WAN, and overnight they were able to upgrade every single store that they had to next generation SD-WAN, really harnessing the power of cloud delivered, harnessing the power of fully automation, AI ops driven model, getting the insights for what they need to drive that, bringing together the notions of networking and security closer, tightly integrated and not bolted on, not having networking and security bolted on, different ways to manage, configure, different policies, etc. Have this seamless integration done, right? That's the solution that we are providing from Palo Alto.
Excellent, excellent. All right, Anand, what else do we have about this release you want to share?
Yeah, sure. So I talked about the first aspect of all the capabilities for our machine learning. The second thing I want to talk about is the Ion 1000, a new piece of hardware. It's a powerful, small form factor SD-WAN appliance. It's really designed for the small retail stores, the small home offices that people have. It's fanless, it's small, it's quiet enough, it can be placed in the work environment. But most important, it enables performance control, the availability and security for your small, medium office, which is consistent with all the enterprise policies that we have, right? So really enabling it part of the fabric. Then the second piece of hardware we have is the Ion 9000. This is the largest, highest performing SD-WAN appliance that we have to date. 2 times the throughput and performance of the flagship device that we have today for large branches and campus locations, supporting multi-gigabits of throughput, high availability, fail to wire, you name it, all the capabilities. Nice. And the last thing that we have that we're announcing is really this whole notion of how do we bring access the journey on secure access services edge or SASE. This is bringing in networking and security, really onboarding seamlessly from Prisma Access, our cloud delivered model we have, seamlessly onboarding the branch CP devices for SD-WAN. Now providing networking and security, cloud delivered and as a service to our customers to really simplify how they run and manage the constructs of network and security that are coming together.
Excellent. Very good stuff. Very good. So this is available now? All the appliances, yeah?
Yeah. Alan, all of the stuff that I talked about is available now. It's shipping. I don't like to talk about things that are a few months away.
No, well, look, some people do. I want to make sure, that's all.
I know.
Excellent, excellent stuff. You know, Anand, I'm glad to see progress being made, right? Too many companies that lean into this, right? I'll be the companies that win, and so I'm glad to see Palo Alto leaning in.
I think if you start thinking about the whole notion of applications everywhere, applications sitting in data centers, in clouds, and multiple clouds and SaaS, users everywhere, at home, on the road, hopefully soon in the branches and the headquarters office. The whole perimeter is no longer like well defined. So you need to make sure that
Well,
first,
not only well defined, I don't know if there is a perimeter anymore.
So not only do we need to have the right application experience for the things that we access, no matter where we are, but have consistent security and policy across it. The second thing is that you want to enable the IT to have the tools to understand what's happening in the network, what is happening with their security constructs, how they're overlapping and correlated, how do you troubleshoot and remediate these problems, how do you move away from manual and debugging things for weeks, looking at this plethora of alarms and not knowing what to do with it. They really want to automate those things. And the last but not the least, I'll really talk about the fact that, look, we've talked about a lot about networking and security coming together, right? It's very important that we talk about it not bolted on. We need to seamlessly integrate networking and security. We need to make it easy, cloud delivered, and give it as a service to our customers. So they don't need to deal with all the complexity. They can focus on what their core tasks are. And that's really the value proposition of what we're driving from Uber perspective.
Excellent. Anand, don't wait 2 to 3 months to come back on then, okay?
No, I will not. We have a lot of things coming on, Alan. I'll be happy to be here again. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, I'm looking forward to it. Anand Oswald of Palo Alto here. New next-gen SD-WAN devices, software, just new capabilities out there for you. Go check it out. This is Alan Schimmel for TechStrong TV. We'll be right back with our next guest. My next guest is Ronnie Franchi of M0. If you haven't heard of M0, check them out. They've just announced a new open source project called TerraTag. It's another open source project around Terraform. We saw TerraScan released recently from Accurix. A lot going on around Terraform. Ronnie's going to tell us all about it and why you should care. Here's now my interview with Ronnie Franchi.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on another segment here for TechStrong TV. My guest this segment is Ronnie Franchi, principal engineer at End0. That's ENV like envelope, ENV number 0. Hey Ronnie, welcome to TechStrong TV.
Hey Alan, thanks for having me.
Thank you. So Ronnie, I'm no disrespect, but I don't think a lot of our audience may not be familiar yet with M0. And so for those who aren't, let's jump right in there. What's M0 about? What do you guys do?
Sure. So I guess M0 is all about kind of bridging the gap between DevOps teams and the rest of the R&D team. And what we mean by that is really we want to unlock self-service for the entire R&D organization while maintaining, providing the DevOps team with visibility, observability into the environments that are spun up. So we want to enable developers, salesmen, QA engineers, whoever needs their own sandbox environment, either to load test or run, move from development to production and even production itself. We want to do all of that, enable all of those to be controlled and governed via N0. So with the press of a button, you get your own environment, right? And we do that using Terraform and basically using existing infrastructure as code frameworks that are available to all, while providing a single environment for the team to govern all of that, right? So they get to unlock a lot of goodies like being able to tell exactly how much an environment costs. What is the actual cost of an environment that spins across multiple cloud providers? You get to know how much is your dev organization costing you, while the production, how much production costs you, and you get to know which deployment was it that actually started where you started seeing costs rise, right, or lower. So all of that is basically N of zero. It's a place for infrastructure as code to be governed and enable self-service for entire R&D team.
Excellent. Ronnie, I always ask our guests to give our audience or share with our audience a little bit of their own personal journey, a little bit of their own background, so they kind of can judge who's here talking to them today.
Sure. So I've been, I guess, a developer for almost all my life. I've been a PC kid. Before N of zero, I used to be an architect, a tech lead for a startup called Decision.